The 25th Infantry Regiment of Buffalo Soldiers, a name for the black regiments of the time, arrived at Fort Brown near Brownsville, Texas on July 28, 1906. From the moment they appeared, white residents kept up a campaign of vicious harassment and threats. When a white man was shot to death, members of the regiment were forced to flee a mob of people who accused them of committing the murder. Tensions were so high that the regimental commander ordered an early curfew and confined the troops to their barracks. A second shooting was blamed on the already quarantined soldiers despite confirmation of their presence in the fort. Without an official charge or trial, 167 of the troops were dishonorably discharged, deprived of pensions, and prevented from gaining federal employment or reinstatement to the Army. This decision was not announced until November 5th, 1906, after congressional elections had taken place and leaders such as W.E.B. Du Bois had urged Black voters to stay in the Republican column. Dr. Charles Morris, pastor of New York's Abyssinian Church, spoke for most of Black America when he described the chain of events. Quote, "The president's decree was signed the day after the election. He shot us when our guns were empty. But we shall have 2 years to work, and our slogan shall be a Republican Congress to protect our people in the South and a Democratic president to resent the insult heaped upon us. Thus shall we answer Theodore Roosevelt, once enshrined in our love as our Moses, now enshrouded in our scorn as our Judas." The 25th Infantry Regiment of Buffalo Soldiers, a name for the black regiments of the time, Good afternoon on the West Coast. Hey, good afternoon in the Central. Good afternoon on the East Coast. You know who it is, family. Yes, follow in. Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the Friends of ADOS TV channel, bringing you those ADOS hot topics and making the case for reparations and a black agenda in exchange for our vote this election cycle. And today, oh yes, family, today I am making the case for why we need to not risk throwing our ballots away by filling in that green party at the top of the ticket or blank at the top of the ticket, family. And unakin to Biden, who wants to sit down with Cardi B, we've got the one, the only ADOS vice presidential candidate for the Green Party, Angela Walker, here to talk to the ADOS as to why we should not waste that top of the ticket filling in anything but the Green Party. She is here to make the case across it all. We're going to talk about education. What's the Green Party plan for jobs? What's the Green Party plan for housing? What's the Green Party plan for healthcare? What's the Green Party plan for small businesses? What's the Green Party plan for those reparations, family? She is here to help make the case and to earn your vote. Unlike the Democrats, whom we've been voting for 84 years, okay? Yes, I've been doing my homework. We've been voting for them for a long time. Around Roosevelt is when we started in 36 and kept on going because Truman desegregated the army and did a couple other little things. Always these crumbs, family. But we're all the way at George Floyd 846. And I got folks' foot on my neck talking about doing the lesser two evil, two-step shuffle all the way to our peril. I've got ADOS out here misinformed that in restricted states and never write-in states, that whole ballot can get thrown out if you don't know your Board of Election law. risking writing in ADOS. I'm saying let's not risk our vote. Let's place it somewhere. Y'all talking about wanting a third party. Why reinvent the wheel? If there's Project Takeover for NAACP and Project Takeover for National Urban League, why wouldn't we look to the Green Party to collaborate and get more tangibles and a Black agenda and reparations for ADOS? This is an exciting show. I want you to share, like, share, subscribe. Introducing the one, the only Angela Walker family. Stand by. I'm excited. Can you tell? All right. Here she is. Let me unmute her so y'all can hear. Lord, I'm just too excited for my own good.
I am so incredibly honored to be with you today, and so honored to have been asked. So I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you too so much, Sis Star. Thank you so much. Before I have you introduce your background, I must shout out that incredible Tansy Flakes. This sister manages, okay, snap. She heralds from the incomparable ADOS DMV, whom I've had the privilege of collaborating with on the March on Washington. And she was instrumental in finding you. I've been begging for you to be on my show to help me make the case, because I've got so many voices that are far bigger than mine. And I needed help. And Tansy is one of those types that's got this huge loving persona that just reaches out and gets the job done. So I would be remiss not to give her much credit for making us happen today. Thank you, Tansy. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Well, I've got so many people filing in. Now, the people that are filing in, these are the ones that are the movement. Forget what you heard. These are the ones that are doing the heavy lifting. And so these are the ones that are going to help me make this video go viral. They're in the chat strong. I shout each of you out. I don't have but an hour with the lovely Miss Walker. And of course, I've got 3 hours worth of questions. So I will get to you, loves. Maybe not this time around, but know that I love you Black and strong. And I can't thank you enough for always being the wind beneath the wings of the Friends of ADOS TV show and just supporting me in my efforts, supporting the movement and slinging bricks wherever you are calling in, dialing in from, tuning in from. Okay, I'm a wreck. So let's jump right in. I want you to please start off, and I'm going to read because I can get chatty and all over the place and miss some of my finer points. Please share with my viewers about who you are and your road to becoming the vice presidential candidate for the Green Party.
Well, I mean, and it's always being put on this spot because it's like I'm just, I was a community activist. My name's Angela Walker. For those, I haven't met. I'm originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I am currently living in Florence, South Carolina, and I'm much happier in the South. Trust and believe that. For so many reasons. Wisconsin, we can get on that later. Wisconsin is a very harsh place, and it is documented a very harsh place. And Milwaukee is a particularly harsh place for Black people. And we can touch on that a little bit later. And then I was part of the Occupy movement in Wisconsin, in both Milwaukee and Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Uprising in 2011. I was a union worker. I was the legislative director for the transit union where I'm from for about 2.5 years. And being that I am an activist, I firmly believe that if you have a platform where you can get your voice out, then it's your duty to make sure that the people who are not in the room are in the room. And so, lifting up what Black folks in our community most needed. And that was something I was able to, get our union engaged in. I was a part of Occupy the Hood because, as we know, the mainstream Occupy movement was very, very white and was not very responsive to the needs of Black folks and other folks of color. And so I was part of that. And in 2014, I got drafted by my former friend Rick Cassell, my late friend Rick Cassell, excuse me, to run against former Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clarke as an independent socialist. Yeah, the guy with the cowboy hat on Fox that hate Black people, even though technically he's Black.
So is Clarence Thomas.
That cat.
Yeah.
Cut from the same cloth, essentially. So I ran against him as an independent, broke socialist, relatively, unknown outside leftist circles. And our campaign pulled 20% of the vote from that cat. Yeah. 67,600 something people in Milwaukee County voted for me. And, it was a referendum against Clarke. We call it the ABC vote. It's anybody but Clarke. But, it's pretty, it caught the attention of the Socialist Party USA. And in 2015, when they held their convention in Milwaukee, my late friend who recently joined the Ancestors, Mimi Soltysik, recruited me to be his running mate. So, I'm not just running on the Green Party ticket, I'm also running representing the Socialist Party of the USA and joining the ranks of, I think I am the only person or second person, the only person since, I forget what year it is, that has been elected or that has been nominated to run as vice president twice. And so I think it's pretty significant to make the history of the Socialist Party, but also the fact that I'm a Black woman doing that. So while they were boosting Kamala, and it's like, I'm proud of y'all Democrats for finally coming around. But as for running Black women for VP, the left been doing that. We've been doing it for decades. And, Dr. Davis twice. I mean, come on. So we out here. And we ran in 2016. I said after that, I was done. I don't enjoy being in the spotlight. I like being behind the scenes, making stuff happen. I don't need to be the person at the front with the megaphone anymore. Moved to South Carolina. I've been a commercial driver in January, it will be 20 years. And wow. I've been a dump truck driver, which is what I currently do. I drive a truck every day. And, for the last 3 years, and I love it. So I got a call in April and it was Howie Hawkins, who is someone that I've known for years. We've been on panels and discussions, and we talked about a Red-Green Alliance years ago and building this concept of left unity. And so this year we're embodying it, which is, on the 100th year of Eugene Debs saying, I want my million votes for socialism. Here we are. So it's kind of a big thing.
It is huge for us, that love ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery. I do have to give a disclaimer. Although the lovely Angela Walker bleeds the same American descendant of chattel slavery blood that we do, family, she's not in the movement, okay? She is not in the movement. Could you explain to my lovely ADOS, I've been ripped to shreds that, the Green Party is all lives matter, and I'm like, I've been trying to help people understand that when you're running for the highest office in the land, you can't be exclusively on ADOS issues, but you can at least offer more than just lending us our reparations and over-policing our communities. Hello, Trump. You can at least speak to American descendants of slavery without having to put in minority 30 times in your Lift Every Voice but ADOS plan and people of color. These are code words for we not getting nothing under an African-American plan. Hello, Biden. Could you please share with my viewers the importance of having something for everyone on your platform?
Well, I think the biggest part of it, and I really thought about this, since you and I spoke yesterday and how I would best explain it. Former President Obama did a lot of pandering, and I'm going to just call it what it is, pandering to the middle class. I'm not middle class. A whole lot of folks are not middle class.
The majority of
And
ADOS is not middle class, but go ahead.
thank you. And so in thinking about what I was going to, how I was going to craft this today, I just wanted to make sure that folks know that, the main thrust of this platform is not to shore up the middle class. This is about working class and poor people. And I know that, not all of Black people in this country, not all of us are poor. And I understand that. But a whole lot of us are. And also thinking of the fact that being that I am working class, everything in this platform is something I personally need. I need Medicare for all. I need access to safe, affordable, and healthy housing. I need access to walkable communities. I need access to healthy food. I need access to an economic bill of rights so that even if I lose my job, there's another one waiting. And it's a green job building the infrastructure of this country. Not something we have that's going to poison us, not something that we have to hang our heads about doing. And so, yes, while I understand, and this has been brought to me before, that this platform doesn't specifically lift up Black people, just us, but it does lift us up. And not only that, there are pieces that are very specific to us.
I love that. Thank you so much. Next question. Recently, the Democrats, and you guys put your questions over here, and I pray to have time to get to it. If you listen, you're going to hear a lot of it already answered because I've been very thorough in the way I frame this discussion today. Okay, family? So just put your questions there, and anything we can't get to within the hour, Angela will gladly, she will gladly respond after the show. Okay, I have Tara Perry's Black Pact Forum that I've got to prepare my portion for. We'll finish prepping my portion for. So I'm limited on time, but please write all your questions, concerns, and comments. And if we don't get to them before the hour is up, I promise I will give them to Angela so she can vet those questions and get us those answers. Okay, family? Now, recently the Democrats, now this is what slays me about the Democrats, and especially our Black Democratic loyalists. They're constantly telling us how inconsequential we are while wailing and gnashing their teeth that we're choosing to vote green top Democratic down ballot. We're not a monolith. There are people in the movement that will still vote Biden and Kamala. I don't know why, but that's their monkey and their circus. I'm here to make the case for why we should vote green top or keep it blank and Democratic down ballot as our protest vote. So the Democrats are the same way at large. They're claiming you guys are inconsequential, but at the same time, they're seeking to get you removed off the ballot. Could you please share with my viewers why they are doing that? Why are they suppressing the vote akin to what they accuse the Republicans of doing? And how are they able to do this?
Well, we were fighting for ballot access in my home state of Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania and Montana. They tried it in Texas. We were able to fight that, but what amounted to a poll tax, our people ended up paying it, which is, illegal. And so they find flimsy excuses. Like in Wisconsin, I moved 4 miles, either 4 or 7, one of the two, from my old place to the place that I currently live in. My declaration of candidacy was submitted with that address change on it, where I currently live. When they realized that some of the petitions, the Green Party of Wisconsin realized some of the petitions that had already been collected had my old address on them. And my new address did not become, I wasn't here until June 1st. They had started circulating before then. We were given 3 different sets of instructions, which we followed all of them. We fought all the way to the Wisconsin Supreme Court, where one of the Republican justices, which is how they show their hand, sided with the Democrats, and we lost the case. But the 3 dissenting justices made it very clear that the Wisconsin Election Committee broke the law to do what they did to us. And the fact that Wisconsin is my home state, And the fact that the folks in the Democratic Party in Wisconsin know exactly who I am. They know exactly who I am. They know exactly my body of work. I took that real personal. I'm gonna be salty a long time behind that. But
so
it's voter suppression.
Your constituents can't even vote for you on that ballot. They
have to write us in. They have to write us in, and we can be written in. We have write-in status in, I believe we're on the ballot in 30 states. The rest of the states, we have write-in status, and there's only 3 states that are basically a dead zone for us, one of which is Oklahoma, South Dakota, where it's just like not happening, and I want to say Louisiana, but I'm not really sure. But I know that Oklahoma and South Dakota is basically a dead zone. But everywhere else, we're either on the ballot or we can be written in.
Okay. Oklahoma, South Dakota, and Louisiana. We can't write in the Green Party or the ballot will go out. Okay.
Yeah, we're not there.
Oklahoma, South Dakota, and Louisiana, no write in. You can write in if they're not on the ballot in the other states. Okay. Wow. So you were able to you had to spend money just to be able to protect your ballot in Texas, right?
Yes. We actually, it's been a legal fight, which is part of their plan. And just going back to why you asked why they would do this, because they can. Because, my thing with the Democratic Party, at least in Wisconsin, is they never showed any courage, real courage against, when it came to standing up to the Republicans who are supposed to be their adversaries. But when it comes to us and they think, okay, you're a small party, you're going to tuck your tail. They weren't expecting to get a fight. And so, then you get demonized for fighting back. Oh, they're holding up the ballots and they're holding up this, which was all, horse hockey. But, at the end of the day, it's bullying. And voter suppression, party suppression is voter suppression. All of those people on those petitions, those thousands of people in all of those states where we've been pushed off the ballot, people signed those petitions. It's never been a matter of whether we had enough valid signatures. That wasn't the problem.
Would you say the same was true in the last election cycle, where the votes were somehow suppressed? I had Ohio State rep for the Green Party, Felina Farley, on, and she mentioned that we were told by mass media that Jill Stein only amassed 1% to 2%. I know I voted for Jill Stein last election cycle after working Bernie Sanders' campaign and realizing I cannot start a revolution within a non-revolutionary party. And they're going to find a way, just like they did with Biden. Bernie was on the fast track to be the presidential candidate for the Democrat Party. Then there was South Carolina. Then there was Obama making dials to all the others like a Biden. I think he was 4th in Iowa, Biden was. And 3rd in New Hampshire, 2nd in California and Nevada, where Bernie he had won all that. And then South Carolina happened, Jim Clyburn got involved, and then Obama got involved. And so they just pretty much come in and co-opted. Okay, so in 2016, when I started learning politically under Yvette Carnell, I started seeing what was happening with the Democrats and how they can just come in and co-opt and change the narrative and push through whomever they choose. And in so doing, I learned from Felina when she was a guest on the show that Jill Stein had actually amassed more votes than what mass media was reporting.
Of course.
So
they have to downplay us. They have to.
Because they can't win fair and square with you guys posing a real threat, not just wherein ADOS is concerned with the protest vote. Do you know of any leftists, the Bernie supporters, whom the Democrats call the Bernie bros? Are they too voting green, top of the ticket this election cycle? Do you know?
There are a lot of people who are. I can't give you like statistics. I'm going by my own personal Twitter feed of people who are members. We've been endorsed by a few chapters of the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, a lot of whom are Bernie supporters. There's a lot of Black folks who, you know, the hashtag Black Comrades was, you know, something we were working with on Twitter. You know, Black folks on the left, a lot of folks who were supporting Black folks who were down for Bernie have come over to our policies. I mean, if you think about what Bernie Sanders was running on, there are policies. Medicare for all is ours. A Green New Deal is ours. All of those are ours.
So he basically co-opted what you were doing, made it popular within the Democratic Party to install an establishment candidate like Biden. I've always felt that Bernie was complicit in why we have Biden. I felt the same way with Hillary. The way I got there was he would never help us in our lawsuit when Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was the head of the DNC, promised our support of Bernie would be weighted fairly. And then in some instances, the superdelegates went against the constituents. When they voted Bernie, the superdelegates voted the way of Hillary. We were told our dollars would be used to help get Bernie, you know, a fair race, only to find out that didn't happen. I believed that Bernie did not fight hard enough for a lot of the chicanery that was going on. And then when Hillary won, even though we know that WikiLeaks and Julian Assange have never been found to be liars about the information they were leaking about Hillary, Bernie Sanders jumped on the Russiagate train. So that's why I did not support Bernie Sanders nor work his campaign this election cycle, because I was like, wait a minute, Bernie, why are you jumping there? Why are you going there with why she did not win when we clearly saw she was not talking to the Rust Belt? She, to me, she may have won the popular vote, but she didn't win the electorate because she wasn't speaking to the working class. She was Obama 2.0 akin to Biden-Harris ticket. So did you have any thoughts about how the Green Party was suppressed the last election cycle and how that robbed you guys of the necessary campaign dollars to do the work this time around?
Speaking of Sanders, just to touch on, you know, where you started with that at the beginning, I can't really speak definitively on, you know, what happened with him, because honestly, I wasn't following it. As far as how things transpired with him, I felt like maybe they did him dirty. I don't know, but I think it's very illustrative of how they handle us. I mean, anything that's truly progressive, truly like not this watered down progressive that's being sold to people, but truly progressive, like something that is an actual threat to the power structure, which is what we're presenting. They're not going to tolerate that within the Democratic Party. He had to know that. They're not going to let you do that.
And to your point, Jill Stein offered him the top of the Green Party ticket when we saw the direction it was going in 2016. He wouldn't even return her calls. She was going to acquiesce the top of the ticket and just let him have it since he had the momentum. So to your point. Okay, let me jump down to another question. Well, I wanted to discuss what makes the Green Party any different. It's a lot that makes you different from the Democrats, okay? And I wanted to start with education. The student loan debt is crushing, and ADOS are being discriminated against in the private sector, given that white women, immigrants, and LGBTQIA benefit most from affirmative action intended to make American descendants of chattel slavery whole post-slavery. It's so bad that white high school dropouts are hired more than our college degreed men and women. I want to know, what's the Green Party solution to education and restoring affirmative action to be our right, our primary entitlement to make people play fair. It's a shame that we've got degrees down here in LA. We are 44% degree, but only 6% of the private sector. The discrimination is real. I've endured it. And this is what's happening to the Black middle class. It's being shrunk by the racism that now prevails when you make whites and immigrants and LGBTQIA benefactors of affirmative action. What ideals do you guys have to help the ADOS wherein education and fair employment practices and affirmative action is concerned?
Well, as far as our education program, first thing I want to say is just to lift up the fact that I stand at the intersection of being, 6, 7 generations born in this country and also part of the LGBTQIA community.
Yes.
So I'm fighting on a couple of fronts.
Yes, as is one of our founders, but go ahead.
Yeah. And just thinking about where you're talking about with affirmative action, in our platform, we want free public education from childcare to pre-K through university. And we want to take affirmative action and end racial discrimination. And I'm reading it because I get all over the place myself. So when you said that, I had to smile. In racial discrimination and segregation in school systems, including federal legislation requiring the redistricting and redrawing of school district lines that now segregate by race and class, which is something that is a huge problem in Milwaukee. We want to take the funding of public schools off of people's property taxes and make that something that the federal government pays for, so you don't have this imbalance in communities that have been traditionally more impacted by poverty, that they say you pay the school you get the school you pay for. Every community has to have a good school. Being that before I left Milwaukee, one of the things that I worked for is advocating for the community schools model, which means if your school is in your community, it should reflect the people in that community. It should also provide services that are needed by the person in that community or the people in that community. Whatever those families need, they should be able to walk into that school building and get it, whether it's job training, whether it's food, whether it's clothes, whether it's Zumba classes, whatever people feel like they need. And I also advocated that, whatever the makeup of that community is, those children should see themselves reflected when they walk in that school. That curriculum should reflect those kids and what they understand, their history. There's no secret that I believe that the history that we have been taught about our people is garbage. We should be writing our curriculum. So investing in school infrastructure, repair, including high-speed internet in impacted communities. I already talked about that. Ending federal support for high-stakes testing and opposing educational tracking that reproduces race and class inequalities and limits student learning opportunities, which is also something that we're dealing with. They decide your kid is on a certain track, you take a certain test and all of a sudden doors just start slamming in your face, which disproportionately affects our people. And it's something that we've been calling for, is the end of high stakes testing. Kids don't, forcing educators to teach to a test does not produce young people who are ready to be world citizens. They're getting their educational opportunities cut and taken away from them. And our children are the most dramatically impacted by this. So we want that ended. And something very close to my heart is ending federal support for the privatization of public schools. Milwaukee has been devastated by for-profit schools or for-profit school individuals coming in. And the voucher side of that is the churches that do this. But coming in and, taking the money that public schools desperately need because they're already underfunded. And when they, they can cherry pick. They can choose the students that they want to educate. Students they don't want to be bothered with get kicked back to the public school system, which is underfunded.
Of course.
And you know, these kids are they're just there. And you know, they keep the money. It's a scheme, and we want that ended. And so, like, reversing affirmative action, or not reversing, just making sure that the things that are currently in place, these policies that are currently in place that have been exclusionary to Black people in this country, that those policies are removed at the end of the day.
Thank you so much for that response. Jobs here in California, as I mentioned, we're 44% degreed and only 6% of the private sector. What is the Green Party's plan for jobs and government contracts for ADOS?
Well, we're offering, our platform offers a federal job guarantee. And yes, a federal job guarantee doing green jobs. This is based on the Economic Bill of Rights proposed back in the 40s and the Economic Bill of Rights put forward by Dr. King. It's the same thing. And it hasn't been implemented. But the need for it, particularly now with so many people out of work due to this pandemic, you know, I forget what the number figure was, but how many jobs are they saying just went away and are never coming back? And so what does that leave people? You're telling people, you know, you've been displaced permanently. There's nothing we're going to do for you. Make the federal government the employer of choice. That, you know, it's not a question of if you're going to get a job. If you are able to work and you are willing to work, there will be work for you. And it will be rebuilding infrastructure in this country. A green job that you don't have to hold your nose to do. Making sure that workers are receiving a living wage. So we don't have folks like we see in our communities that are working 2 and 3 and 4 jobs and they're just barely making it. You should be guaranteed a living wage no matter what your job is. And you shouldn't have to work more than one job to do it. And if you are not, your income is not above the poverty level, which the lines for which would be redrawn under our administration, because, you know, what we have is not accurate currently about what the poverty line is. Making sure that the government would be providing people a monthly check to bring them up above poverty. So if your work is not doing it, it is the job of the federal government to step in and, you know, bolster your income and make sure that you are not living under poverty. There's a whole lot of stuff over there. It's just making
you can cherry pick and get your top.
I'm trying to.
I know, just your top few, because we still have so much more to cover, but just your top 2 or 3 talking points.
Well, amending the Constitution to establish that federal economic Bill of Rights so that it's codified into law and people can't just yank it away. People have a right, you know, we have a right to a basic income above poverty. We have a right to a federal job guarantee. We have a right to economic self-determination, which is where things, when you start getting, and I saw it in the chat where somebody was like, she sounds just like Obama. I'm actually a socialist. Obama ran from that. I'm actually a socialist. But making sure that, you know, how do I want to say this? When it comes to Black people and Black Americans, yes, these policies cover a whole lot of people. And when I'm reading through this, I am thinking specifically of the needs of poor and working class Black people who have been the most disproportionately affected by everything that this country has ever done, as far as legislation, redlining, and things like that. And so we need constitutional protection that says you have the right and cannot have it taken away from you to have a living wage job. You have the right to that. And I think that's where I pretty much left it. But yeah, it's a federal job guarantee, basic income above poverty, living wage, For folks who work in the private sector, your wages are going to be raised because the government is providing a living wage. In order to be competitive, if you have, folks in the private sector has to come up. They just do. Otherwise, people are going where they know they're going to get a job. So.
Absolutely. Okay, next is healthcare. We are dying disproportionately from COVID-19 and are the most impacted, due in large part to a lack of quality healthcare and being redlined into environmentally racist communities with lead water and hookworm. What's the Green Party's plan to get the best of healthcare to those of us who are suffering the most?
Which is why the Medicare for All for us is which is what it differed from what Bernie and the Democrats took. It is a community controlled national health service. You're pushing out like independent, like big ag, big pharma, not big ag. You know what I'm trying to say. Big insurance that you're taking out insurance saying, if you do this, then you have health care like what we have right now. It's not that. This is socialized medicine, as scary as it is for a lot of people when they hear that, but that's what it is. And just to illustrate what that looks like, what the individual that is currently occupying the White House just received for COVID treatment is the entitlement of all of us, particularly Black folks. I'm thinking of the fact that in Milwaukee, we have a huge problem and have for a few years. And being that my daughter is currently carrying twins, this is something very close to me.
Wow.
Our Black maternal and infant mortality rate at least in 2015, 2016 was higher than Bulgaria in Milwaukee. We have a problem with Black birth outcomes. And
Why? The racism in the healthcare system?
Medical apartheid, and a lack of wraparound services to make sure that families are supported through pregnancies, that there's a safe space for babies to sleep, that the families, folks having kids are receiving all the services that they need to make sure we have good birth outcomes. You have to believe pregnant people and listen to them and respect the wisdom of their own bodies in order to give them good care. But I digress. When I talk about Medicare for All is the national community health controlled health service, provides comprehensive health care for all at no cost to patients at the point of healthcare delivery. So you don't have people having to decide between paying their rent and keep a roof over their head and whether they can go to the doctor or not. I know I have insurance through my job, and there have been times when I've had to not go to a doctor appointment because of the copay. I didn't have it. So this is something very close to me.
Absolutely.
And it offers free choice of practitioners to patients. If a doctor is not treating you right, not only can you have a discussion, not a phone tree, because there's a democratically elected health board overseeing where you are and where you're going that you can go to and talk to about what's happening. You have free choice. You can pick another doctor. And salary, it covers all medically necessary services, all of them, not picking and choosing, all of them. And we would put medical professionals, doctors and nurses, putting them on salary, which would stop them from rushing their patients through in order to maximize income, where they're not really listening to people, which is something our people know a whole lot about, particularly with Black women. I mean, I have fibroids. I'm 46. I was only diagnosed with fibroids 2 years ago. I've been suffering all these years with this because people don't listen to us. And this story is replicated with every Black woman friend that I have. And so to have a doctor that will take the time to listen to you, take the time to find out what is really going on with you, and also respect the wisdom of your own body that you are bringing into that office with you, that matters. And so by salarying doctors and nurses and other healthcare workers and stopping the rushing through of their patients to maximize income, we're talking about improving the quality of care that our folks are receiving. And also this administration of unnecessary tests because it brings up your money. If someone doesn't need a test, don't give it to them. Don't send them for that. We're not guinea pigs. The whole thing makes me nervous.
Absolutely should.
But Black folks in this country have traditionally and continue to be affected by medical apartheid. Medicare for All would ensure democratic community control of medical facilities to enable underserved communities to get an equitable allocation of healthcare resources. So you don't have like this overage of like state-of-the-art equipment, but you don't have a clinic in your community. There's an imbalance. This system will be democratically managed by locally elected health boards. So whoever's in your community that you decide needs to be on that board, y'all get together and y'all figure that out. And these are people who are directly responsive to you versus having to go through this bureaucratic phone tree that we have now. And managed by locally elected health boards that federate at the state and national levels for overall planning and coordination. So it puts the system in the hands of the people. And I'm thinking about a system, similar to that, Cuba, where they train the best doctors in the world for free, and your doctor lives in your neighborhood. We need a system like that, and that's what we're talking about.
Thank you so much. Under Obama, 1 million white millionaires were created, while 43% of ADOS lost their wealth after being instrumental in getting him elected for 2 terms. And it is projected that by 2053, we will be wealthless. I would venture to say we're already wealthless, especially since COVID-19. What's the Green Party's plan to close the over $100 trillion egregious racial wealth gap for ADOS, especially given that our chattel slave labor amassed $11 trillion for this country post-slavery?
Part of it is reparations. And, it is in our platform to, go ahead with HR 40, the bill to study the effects of chattel slavery, which of course we know that the Ma'afa changed our DNA as people. Those of us, our ancestors who lived through that, those of us who are living now, our DNA has been changed. I mean, there's no words you can put to that. But not just studying the effects of enslavement on our people, but figuring out, how do you remedy that? And one of the things that, that's another issue for community control, because Black people, we're not a monolith in this country. And what my community might decide looks like reparations may not be what your community thinks is reparations or that's appropriate. And so there would have to be some sitting down and figuring that out with communities. But while that is happening, we need to be ending the war on drugs that disproportionately impacts our communities. We need to be letting people who are incarcerated for marijuana out. And they also need to be given, people in our communities need to be given priority in the legal grow industry, where people who do not look like us are making money hand over fist for something that people who do look like us are sitting in prison for. So that's one piece of that. But, to bridge this, well, not even bridge it, to end the wealth gap, we need an economic bill of rights. And they knew this in the 40s, they knew this in the 60s, and we know it now.
Absolutely. You were mentioning to me yesterday about what your reparations currently looks like. Could you share what are some of the items under your repair that are running on your platform currently?
Let me pull that up. And I will read it verbatim because, like I said, I get all over the place. Regarding reparations to African Americans, it is our campaign's position that ending racial oppression requires both race-specific remedies and also universal economic rights that are guaranteed by the government in a race-conscious way. We must strengthen and enforce anti-discrimination laws in employment, housing, and the political criminal justice systems. Affirmative action must be taken to reverse the growing race and class resegregation of housing and schools. We have to enact HR 40, which is the Commission to Study, which we just referenced, and develop reparation proposals for African Americans Act to consider appropriate remedies for the impact of slavery and subsequent racial discrimination for living African Americans. We emphasize that we see this bill as a program to study and develop reparations proposals. But while that's happening, we have to empower racially oppressed communities, which is Black folks primarily, to practice self-determination through collective community ownership, which is something the Panthers advocated for, and also which was put forth in the Black Manifesto in 1969 by James Forman at that first Black National Conference or Black National Convening, which is how he drew from for this. The empowered through collective community ownership of public schools, housing, police, and businesses. The empowering of racially oppressed communities will keep folks from being subject to racism from employers, bankers, landlords, real estate agents, union business agents who have been gatekeepers for far too long when it comes to labor, when it comes to us. And that's a whole nother discussion. Real estate agents, union business agents, lawyers, judges, police, and assorted professional managerial gatekeepers, including politicians. Empowerment means that democratic community control so that the masses of Black people benefit not merely a more representative professional managerial class that simply replaces the white professional managerial class that soaks up the funding and salaries, grants, and contracts. So basically community control of all of the entities in our neighborhoods, in our communities that most impact us, which is not a new call. The Panthers called for it. It was called for at the first Black National Convention. The movement for Black Lives has been discussing this. What we're saying is nothing new. As far as uplift of our people, what should have happened after Reconstruction, we need to own and have a collective community control of the entities that are the closest to us.
Absolutely, I concur. Now, would you guys, because we are currently challenging the current HR 40, because it doesn't have enough teeth in it and it's not exclusive for the repair of the American descendants of chattel slavery. Would the Green Party be willing to work with some of the top leaders throughout the country to revisit and to fix the HR 40 study so that it would be inclusive of the things we are in so dire need of? Do you know if the Green Party would be open to that?
I can't speak for the party as a whole. Mm-hmm. I can speak for our campaign, and that answer would be yes.
Thank you for that. In a Market Watch article, thank you, dated July 1st, 2020, Black home ownership has declined since 2012. Only 44% of Black families own their homes as of Q1 2020, pre-COVID, might I add, as compared to 73.7% of white households. What's the Green Party's solution to helping ADOS improve these home ownership rates?
Our focus has been on making sure that people have access to safe, affordable, and accessible housing. So our emphasis has been on the building of enough public housing units, and not in the way that we've been taught to think of public housing. We're thinking of the way that it's done in other countries where you have a mix of income levels. It's not somewhere you segregate poor people off to the side and, the way that we do it now. That's not what we're talking about. And that these are also units that are created to be in walkable communities that have access to, revamped public transportation and all the things that people need to have access to. So when we're talking about home ownership, just making sure that people who are in their homes are able to keep their homes, that you don't have the predatory practices that we've seen, particularly out west, where, the housing crisis that is completely manufactured seeing people forced out of their homes, or, you know, gentrification happening like I've seen here on the East Coast and what's happening where I'm from. Just making sure that there are federal measures in place where people are able to keep their homes, and those who are seeking, you know, home ownership are able to do that without having to jump through a bunch of hoops to do it.
Okay, thank you for that response. Let's see here. Black Americans make up a disproportionately smaller share of traditional business owners and the self-employed workers than the overall population. The economic effects of the pandemic on Black entrepreneurship is unknown, but a CNN report dated 8/4/2020 states Black-owned businesses are shutting down twice as fast as other businesses, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. The report estimated 41% of Black-owned businesses shut down across the country between February and April, as compared to 32% of Latino businesses, 26% of Asian businesses, and 17% of white businesses in the same period. The author cites lack of financial savings, less access to capital, including federal PPP loans and funding gaps that existed prior to the pandemic, as causes for the demographic disparities. In other words, this is what I was sharing with you about class-based policies, how they don't fix race, how the ADOS need transformative politics. What is the Green Party's solution to what I just shared? How are they intending to prioritize the needs of ADOS over everyone else that came long after we built all the wealth in the country?
Well, the first thing to do, again, and I'm going to probably keep going back to that, because if you don't have an economic field that is already level, we're always coming from behind and having to catch up, which of course is completely by design. It is completely by design. And so, you know, I'll always keep coming back to the first line of defense, if you want to say it like that, being the Economic Bill of Rights, making sure that, you know, our people are made whole as far as the work that needs to be done to end poverty. And once you get folks out of poverty where they can start moving around, you know, then, you know, talking about making sure that the business loans that are earmarked for our people, that our people are actually getting them, and getting them, that there's, you know, the discrimination that we've seen happening with like small business loans, making sure we're the last if we get them at all, that those practices simply don't continue. You know, you have to have a government that is not in denial about the impact of racism and the fact that racism is institutionalized against, you know, it's institutional. It's not something that's in our collective head. It's not something we come up with. This is the way that this is what this country is built on. And so, you know, you have to have a government that acknowledges that, and that, you know, the people who have been most harmed by these policies are where you start if you want to genuinely repair what's wrong with this country. If you're interested in healing, you have to start with us, because everything has been done to us. Everything has been taken from us.
Absolutely. I was going to say that even the Republican Party and immigration has been weaponized against ADOS to keep us tethered to the bottom. Hence why we are in the fight of our lives to prevent from becoming the permanent underclass in the country our ancestors have built with their lives.
Say that one more time.
I was saying that basically Republicans, which the Democrats are pivoting to the Republican Party, they're seeking votes. I mean, you saw them speaking at our own national convention.
Yes.
So you see them pandering for the Republican vote. You see them pandering for the immigrant vote, Lots of that is going on, where the Democratic Party is talking about giving a pathway to citizenship to 11 million more Hispanics, before making us whole, before making us American. That is what's happening. And that's why the ADOS movement is not just talking reparations just in these metrics we've been speaking on, which is very much a part of our Black agenda under ADOS101.com. But we're also talking about cash repair in the trillions over multi-generations. And so basically what's happening right now with the Democratic Party, they're not prioritizing our needs like you just eloquently stated. They are, in fact, prioritizing everyone else's needs over us. As far as I'm concerned, this is the last election cycle we will have where our votes will matter. You're looking at 56 million Hispanics in this country already. To ADOS, now I'm talking ADOS specifically, is around 31 million. We've got about 4 million Black immigrants in the country. And so when you're looking at 56 million to 31 million, you're adding another 11 million more, which is 67 million. This is why I'm imploring upon the ADOS to strongly consider helping the Green Party get on the ballot and get campaign funding, because it is clear and evident this election cycle that the Democrats are giving us, their middle finger, while not having policies nearly as inclusive of ADOS as the Green Party does.
I would argue, because I was reading the chat, that the Republicans are offering us. I did.
I mean, don't read the chat, girl, because they're hungry.
I get it every. Come in expecting. It's really all right. This is the position. No, this is the position I put myself in. It's fine. But what I want people to also understand is looking at the big picture. What are the Republicans offering our community? They don't even mention us. I'm just curious. They don't even mention us. We're not people to them. And, thinking about the Democratic Party, they're guilty of taking our vote and our communities for granted, to the point where they talk to us like Joe Biden did, and people kept saying it was a gaffe. He didn't make any gaffes. He said exactly what he thought about our communities. Exactly. They feel like they have Black people in their hip pocket, that no matter what they say about us, what they do not offer us, we're going to show up. The thing about it, this platform is not perfect. And you and I had that discussion. I'm not sitting here thinking, oh, this is like the answer to everything. This is going to be an uphill battle. If Howie and I were to win the White House, which is my intention, I ain't gonna lie. But if Howie and I were to win the White House, do you know what kind of opposition we walking into? Come on. You talking about two socialists walking into a very well-funded, very deeply entrenched. And people think this is two parties. They're not two parties. It is a monopoly that has two faces. You got one party. And so
they win no matter who's in office.
Thank you. They're fine. We're not. And for the last how many years, how long has this happened? No, this platform is not perfect. No, it's not going to go as far as a whole lot of people feel like it needs to go. But at least it is a start. And it was formulated with us in mind specifically.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I would ask of the people who are coming for the throat and the neck of the Green Party to find me anything greater in Biden's, I said it right, Obama, Biden, same difference, lift every voice but ADOS plan. Show me where there's anything more inclusive in Trump's plan, where he intends to lend us our reparation to the tune of $500 billion, a number he got from Marianne Williamson, who increased her bid from $100 billion to $500 billion. I implore upon you, he wants to lend you your reparations, and he wants to over-police your communities. I implore you to look at the Libertarian Party and show me where we've been included to the degree that the Green Party has included us. So, I'm sold. I know my square and what I'm intending to do. And what I'm asking more than anything is to protect your vote. Know your Board of Election laws, family, and don't throw away the vote. I shared with you at the top of the show how Theodore Roosevelt dishonorably discharged 167 of our Buffalo soldiers, took away their pensions they couldn't reinstate into the Army, took away their ability to get federal government jobs over a white man that they allegedly shot while being quarantined in their barracks, for the first white man that had gotten shot. And I shared with you about Dr. Charles Morrison of Abyssinian Church, who said, you basically did this after we elected you, after we gave you the vote, akin to how some of the ADOS, the lineage, you guys want to sit up here and implore upon us to continue this lesser of two evil strategy to our own peril. Get Biden in there first and then make your demands. You mean because it works so seamlessly under Obama? Is that what you mean, family? It worked so seamlessly when he got into office after we helped to get him there for 2 terms and told us no to reparations, which is why this is an uphill battle. I want to implore upon you, the ones who are slinging mud at the Green Party and talking ish, you're not putting yourself and your life on the line to do this work the way Angela Walker is doing. And that is a huge deal. So don't be disrespectful and understand you are to compare all of it and make an informed decision about how you intend to vote this election cycle. But I would venture to say that this is a start. And Miss Walker, just like Marianne Williamson said, she is willing to even sit down with the top brass throughout this country and talk about how to craft and frame the HR 40 and the reparations. She's willing to listen. Not a one of those candidates, but Marianne Williamson even came to our inaugural conference. So before you spin off your axis, I want you to check out gp.org and farm questions. Don't nail this beautiful sister to the cross. She took of her time and energy to come here at Tansi's request to help have the conversation. And she's right. It will not be perfect until we're at the table. And that's what the socialists, the Green Party is offering us a chance to have a conversation so that we can have a meeting of the minds and they can understand what the needs are based on what we've been studying. Okay, a couple of questions. What time are we at? Oh, 1 hour 7. I'm going to stop it right there because I've got to prepare for my next show. I can't thank you enough for being here and
thank you
for being on the front lines fighting for ADOS. She's calling us Black, but that's us. We are working on our own specific identity as ADOS to unflatten Blackness as a much needed necessity because we find that Black immigrants are doing financially far greater than us. Down here, just to give you a tidbit, here in LA, we're $200 liquid, to African immigrants, $60,000 liquid, to whites, $110,000 liquid, to Kamala's people, Asian Indian, $245,000 liquid. So we are seeking our own identity, but I want to remind everyone that tuned in that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And consider putting your support, instead of throwing away the top of the ticket, writing in Angela Walker and Howie Hawkins for president and VP at the top of the ticket, and delivering a Democratic down ballot akin to what I was sharing about Dr. Morris. Let me go back to that real quick. I'm sorry, I jump all over the place. I was making a point about Dr. Charles Morris of Abyssinian Church, who said, they shot us when our guns were empty. You got the vote, and then you did this to our Buffalo soldiers for a crime they did not commit. And he was suggesting what I am proposing now, that we gridlock government and take those 2 years to vet the Green Party, to vet other candidates that are speaking about reparations and a Black agenda in the Democratic Party as well, to replace them. He said, we want to do a Republican Congress. At the time it was switched. We were supporters of the Republican Party. Let's deliver a Republican Congress and a Democratic top. That is what he was proposing we do in the early 1900s, akin to what I am sharing in terms of this protest vote, to not only put in Green Party at the top of that ticket to help us in our protest vote. It would make way for a Republican top and a Democratic Congress, akin to what Charles Morris was recommending back in the early 1900s. And jointly, it would help the Green Party get the percentile that they need to get campaign financing, where we can get them on every ticket throughout this country. And in the meantime, be able to work with the likes of Angela Walker to get our demands met in exchange for our vote. That's what I'm imploring upon us to do. I thank you so much for helping me to make that case today.
Thank you for having me.
To, having more exchanges with you henceforth. You're in my speed dial, and I'll be speaking with you about a handpicked select few of us that I'd love to do a roundtable with you and some of the finer members in this movement. Thank you.
Please. Thank you.
And with that said, sis, if you don't mind, I'd like to put a covering over all of ADOS, that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever ADOS and its allies are, God truly is, because, family, you are the face of God. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. Until Tuesday, family, you make it a beautiful, God-inspired rest of your evening and next couple of days until we meet again. And go out here in these streets and act like you know who you are. I love you, Black. I love you, strong. Thanks for tuning in, family. Ciao for now. Angela, hold that gorgeous smile while I end the broadcast.